You wake up, check your phone, and immediately the world floods in. Messages, notifications, news, opinions. Before you've even taken a deep breath, your mind is pulled in a dozen directions. Someone's latest achievement makes you question your own progress. A heated argument on social media triggers an emotional response. The noise is relentless, and without even realizing it, you've lost control over your focus. But what if you took a different path? What if, instead of reacting to the world, you trained yourself to observe it with calm detachment? What if, instead of seeking validation from others, you learned to trust yourself? What if, instead of filling every silence with distractions, you embraced it as a source of strength? This is the secret to self-control. Focus on yourself and stay silent. For centuries, the wisest minds in history have understood that true mastery begins within. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But in today's world, the opposite seems true. Everyone is speaking, but few are listening, and fewer still are listening to themselves. We live in an age of endless noise, both external and internal. There's always something demanding your attention. The world pushes you to compare, to chase, to react. Society tells you that success is about being seen, about making noise, about proving yourself. But the truth is, those who achieve real mastery are not those who shout the loudest, but those who listen the most to themselves, to their thoughts, to their inner wisdom. Think about the people who have made the biggest impact in history. Leonardo da Vinci, Marcus Aurelius, Albert Einstein, Bruce Lee. What did they all have in common? They spent time alone. They withdrew from the noise. They practiced deep focus and self-reflection. They weren't swayed by every passing trend or opinion. They were guided by something deeper, their own mind. But here's the hard truth. You cannot reach this level of mastery if you are constantly distracted. You cannot develop self-control if your attention is always dictated by the external world. Every time you react to an insult, an opinion, or an expectation, you give away a piece of your power. And over time you forget that the only thing you can truly control is yourself. Silence is not emptiness. It is not passivity. It is a tool, a weapon, a sanctuary. When you embrace silence, you create space. Space to think, to process, to understand. You stop reacting impulsively and start acting intentionally. This is what separates those who are controlled by the world from those who control themselves. There is a reason why ancient warriors, monks, and philosophers all practiced some form of silence. The samurai trained in absolute discipline, speaking only when necessary. The Stoics meditated on their thoughts before speaking. The Buddhists understood that silence leads to insight. Even in modern times, the world's most successful individuals guard their focus fiercely, limiting their exposure to unnecessary noise. You might wonder, but what does this have to do with self-control? Everything. When you stop speaking unnecessarily, you stop explaining yourself to people who don't matter. You stop wasting energy on pointless debates. You stop seeking approval. You start listening to your thoughts, to your emotions, to the way your mind truly works. And when you truly understand yourself, you become unshakable. If you want to gain true self-control, you must begin with awareness. Right now, take a moment and ask yourself, how often do you react without thinking? How much time do you spend seeking validation from others? How many times a day do you fill the silence with distractions? If you are honest, you will realize that most of your stress, your emotional turbulence, and your lack of focus come from external noise. But here's the good news. You can reclaim your power starting now. The first step, withdraw. Not physically. This isn't about running away from the world, but mentally. Pull back from unnecessary conversations. Stop explaining your actions. Stop reacting impulsively. Stop allowing others to control your emotions. Instead, practice silence. Observe, but don't respond. Listen, but don't engage. Think, but don't always speak. The more you do this, the more powerful you will become. Look at some of the greatest minds and leaders. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic philosophers and Roman emperors, practiced daily reflection in his private journal. He didn't speak his thoughts to the world, he wrote them for himself. And through that practice, he developed unbreakable discipline and self-mastery. Bruce Lee believed in emotional content rather than emotional reaction. He trained himself to remain calm, to speak only when necessary, to let his actions speak louder than his words. His philosophy? Be like water, flowing, adaptable, and never forced. Even in modern business, the most successful leaders are not those who talk the most, but those who listen, observe, and act with precision. Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, all known for their ability to focus intensely, think independently, and speak only when necessary. If you've struggled with distractions, with emotional reactions, with feeling like the world controls you instead of the other way around, this is your moment to change. The shift starts with a single decision: to focus on yourself. Reduce your exposure to distractions. Spend more time in silence. Stop seeking external validation. Observe instead of reacting. Train yourself to think before you speak. This is not about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming aware. It's about mastering your mind so that you are no longer swayed by every external force. From this moment on, you are in control. You no longer need the noise of the world to validate your existence. You do not need to justify yourself to others. You do not need to react to every minor irritation. You are focused. You are disciplined. You are silent, but powerful. Because the strongest people in the world are not those who speak the most. They are those who listen, reflect, and move with intention. And that journey starts now. You've made the decision to focus on yourself. You've chosen silence over noise, discipline over distraction, and at first it feels liberating. There's a sense of control, a feeling that you are finally steering your own ship. But then something shifts. The world doesn't slow down. The distractions don't disappear. If anything, they become louder, more insistent. The moment you withdraw your energy from external noise, the world fights to pull you back in. Your phone still pings with notifications. People still demand your attention. The temptation to react, to speak, to defend, to explain, rises like a wave crashing against your resolve. And this is where most people fail. They believe that self-mastery is a decision. In reality, it is a battle. A war fought in the mind, day after day. And the greatest enemy? Your own impulses. Think about the last time you lost control. Maybe someone said something that triggered you, and before you even processed it, you reacted. Maybe you wasted hours scrolling through social media, absorbing other people's opinions, comparing yourself, feeling inadequate. Maybe you found yourself explaining your choices to someone who never really mattered. And after it was over, after the moment had passed, you felt it, that sinking realization. I lost control. It happens to everyone because we are wired to react. The human brain evolved to respond quickly to stimuli. A loud noise, a perceived threat, a social challenge. Your mind treats all of it as urgent. But in today's world, most of these triggers are illusions. They don't require immediate responses. They don't deserve your energy. And yet, you react. You explain yourself. You argue. You defend. You justify. And this is how you lose. Not in a single moment, but gradually, over time. Every day that you allow distractions to dictate your focus, you give away a piece of your power. Every time you respond to something unimportant, you delay your own growth. People fear silence because it forces them to face themselves. When the noise disappears, you are left alone with your thoughts. And that can be terrifying. The self-doubt, the unresolved emotions, the fears you've suppressed for years, all of it rises to the surface in silence. And this is why people avoid it. They drown themselves in conversations, in distractions, in anything that keeps them from being alone with their minds. But those who seek self-mastery do the opposite. They lean into the discomfort. They embrace the silence, knowing that the struggle is temporary, but the rewards are permanent. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoics, understood this. As a Roman emperor, his life was filled with chaos, wars, politics, betrayal. And yet, he spent time alone every single day. He would retreat from the noise, journaling his thoughts, reflecting in silence. If the most powerful man in the world could do it, so can you. Most people don't realize how much energy they waste by reacting to everything. Every unnecessary conversation, every argument, every explanation, it drains you. You think you are just responding, just engaging, just defending yourself. But in reality, you are scattering your focus. The Stoics had a saying, "Don't explain yourself. Your actions speak for you." Consider how often you feel the need to explain yourself. When you make a decision, do you seek approval? When someone questions you, do you rush to justify your actions? Every time you do, you weaken your position. Because those who are truly in control never need to explain. They act, they move, they decide, and they let their results speak for themselves. If you want to break free from the cycle of reaction, you must train yourself to pause. Next time you feel the urge to explain, stop. Take a breath. Ask yourself, does this deserve my energy? If the answer is no, walk away. When someone insults you, pause. Do not react. Watch how they expect you to respond, how they crave your reaction, and then deny them that satisfaction. At first, it will feel unnatural. Your mind will scream at you to engage. But over time, you will become stronger. You will begin to see how much power there is in silence. The samurai, the ancient warriors of Japan, trained themselves to be unmoved. They believed that the strongest fighter was not the one who struck first, but the one who waited in stillness, observing their opponent's every move. Emotion was seen as a weakness. A samurai who reacted impulsively was a dead samurai. The greatest warriors trained not only their bodies, but their minds. They mastered the art of self-restraint. This is the same principle you must apply to your life. Observe, but do not react. Control your emotions. Control your impulses. Let others exhaust themselves in meaningless noise while you remain still, calculating, untouchable. The more you practice silence, the more you realize that most of life's problems solve themselves. Arguments lose power when you do not engage. People who seek to provoke you lose interest when they see they cannot affect you. The weak demand attention. The strong remain unmoved. And slowly, something incredible happens. Your mind becomes quieter. Your thoughts become clearer. Your focus sharpens. You start seeing opportunities that were once hidden by distractions. You begin to move differently, speak differently, carry yourself differently. And the world notices, because silence is powerful. And those who master it become unstoppable. You have begun to break free from the cycle of reaction. You've learned to pause, to resist the urge to explain, to observe rather than engage. But this is where the real test begins. The world does not like when you withdraw your energy. People around you will sense the shift. They will question your silence. They will try to pull you back into the noise. Why? Because most people fear what they do not understand. And silence, it is one of the most misunderstood forces in the world. People expect reactions. They expect emotions. When they do not receive them, they become uncomfortable. A person who cannot be provoked is a person who cannot be controlled. Think about the last time someone tried to get a reaction out of you. Maybe it was an insult. Maybe it was a passive-aggressive comment. Maybe it was an attempt to provoke jealousy, anger, or insecurity. And when you did not react, when you simply remained silent, what happened? They became uneasy. They grew frustrated. They did not know what to do. Because silence is unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. Your mind has been conditioned to react. From childhood, you were taught to respond to external stimuli instantly. When someone asked you a question, you answered. When someone pushed, you pushed back. When someone spoke, you felt the need to fill the silence. But this conditioning has made you weak. It has made you dependent on external forces to dictate your behavior. The strongest minds in history rewired this instinct. They trained themselves to wait, observe, and respond only when necessary. Bruce Lee once said, "Be like water." Water does not react impulsively. It moves with precision, adapting to its surroundings without resistance. It is powerful, not because it forces its way, but because it flows with intention. This is how you must train your mind: to flow, to adapt, to respond only when necessary. If you study the most influential people in history, you will notice a pattern. They are not the loudest voices in the room. They listen more than they speak. They observe more than they act. They let others reveal their intentions before making their move. Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of all time, is known for his ability to wait. He does not rush decisions. He does not engage in unnecessary debates. He lets the noise pass while he remains focused, and because of this, he sees opportunities others miss. Sun Tzu, the ancient military strategist, taught that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. The greatest victories are not won through direct conflict, but through calculated silence and patience. And in modern times, the most respected leaders are those who know when to hold their tongue, wait, and strike when the time is right. This is how power works. Once you stop reacting to everything, a new world opens up. You start seeing patterns. You begin to notice how people reveal themselves through their words, their tone, their body language. You realize that most people talk to fill the void. They speak not because they have something valuable to say, but because they fear silence. But you no longer fear it. You have embraced it. And now you are in control. Emotional stillness is the ultimate form of strength. Most people are emotional slaves. Their mood is dictated by the opinions of others. A single comment can ruin their day. A minor setback can throw them into despair. But those who master self-control, they remain still. They do not let emotions control them. They feel everything, but they choose what deserves a response. Imagine being untouchable. Imagine a life where nothing disturbs your inner peace, where no insult, no criticism, no opinion has the power to shake you. This is what true mastery looks like. Now that you understand the power of silence, you must practice it deliberately. First, observe without engaging. The next time you're in a conversation, say nothing unless it adds value. Watch how people react. Watch how they become uncomfortable in silence. Learn from their discomfort. Second, delay your responses. When someone asks you a question, pause before answering. Take a breath. Let them feel the weight of the silence before you speak. This will train you to control impulsive reactions. Third, limit your words. Speak with precision. Every word you say should serve a purpose. The fewer words you use, the more powerful they become. And finally, practice absolute stillness. When emotions rise, do not act. Do not respond. Do not explain. Simply sit with the feeling. Let it pass through you without control. Once you master these techniques, something interesting happens. People begin to treat you differently. They sense that you are no longer easy to provoke. They see that you are unaffected by drama, by gossip, by meaningless debates. And this makes you intimidating, not in a hostile way, but in a way that commands respect. People will start to seek your approval. They will crave your opinion. They will value your words because you do not waste them. And the most powerful change, you will value yourself. You will no longer chase validation. You will no longer waste time proving yourself. You will move through the world with quiet confidence, knowing that your power comes from within. The greatest test of self-mastery is this. Can you walk away? Can you ignore an insult? Can you sit in silence when others expect you to speak? Can you leave a debate knowing you do not need to prove yourself? If you can, you have won. Because the world belongs to those who do not need to explain themselves. And now, you are one of them. You have fought the battle. You have faced the distractions, the noise, the endless pull of external validation. And now, something is different. The things that once triggered you no longer have power. The need to explain, to defend, to react, it's gone. You have entered a new state of being, a state of quiet power. It happens unexpectedly. Someone tries to provoke you, an insult, a criticism, a challenge. In the past, you would have responded immediately. But now, you pause. You watch them, but you do not engage. You see their frustration grow as they wait for your reaction, but none comes. And in that moment, you understand something profound. You no longer need to prove yourself to anyone. There is nothing to explain, nothing to argue, nothing to defend, because you are in control. This is the turning point, the moment when self-mastery stops being an idea and becomes your reality. You start to notice changes in how you move through the world. You speak less, but when you do, your words carry weight. People listen, they pay attention. Your emotions are no longer dictated by external forces. Insults don't bother you. Opinions don't define you. You remain steady, unmoved. And because of this, people start treating you differently. They respect you. They sense your strength. Not the loud, aggressive kind of strength, but the quiet, undeniable kind. The strength of someone who knows who they are. The people in your life begin to change. Some are drawn to you. They admire your self-control, your discipline, your ability to stay calm in situations where others would break. But others, they disappear. Those who thrived on your reactions, who fed off your energy, who used your emotions against you, they no longer know how to handle you, and so they fall away. This is not a loss. It is a cleansing, a natural consequence of stepping into your power, because now you attract people and opportunities that align with your discipline, your vision, your purpose. You no longer chase, you attract. There is a peace in this kind of self-control, a deep, unshakable peace. Your mind is no longer cluttered with distractions. Your emotions are no longer at war with your thoughts. You wake up with clarity. You move with precision. You no longer waste time explaining, arguing, proving, because you do not need to. And this is freedom. To be focused is not just about removing distractions, it is about becoming immune to them. True focus is not fragile. It does not depend on external circumstances. It is a state of being. You no longer need the world to be quiet in order to maintain your silence. The noise does not disturb you because you are no longer attached to it. Your mind is sharp. Your attention is your own. Your energy is no longer scattered. It is laser-focused on what truly matters. At the core of all this growth, all this transformation, lies a single truth. You are enough. You do not need approval. You do not need validation. You do not need to be understood by those who will never understand. Your value is not dependent on how the world sees you. It is something you carry within you. And because of this, you are unshakable. This is not the end of the journey. Mastery never ends. There will always be tests, always be moments that challenge your discipline. But now you are prepared. You know that silence is power, that self-focus is freedom, that control over yourself is the only true control you will ever have. And because of this, you will never fall back into the chaos. So from this moment on, own it. Own your power. Own your focus. Own your silence. Move through the world with quiet confidence. Let others waste their energy in noise while you build, grow, and thrive in silence. Because the ones who change the world, they are not the ones who scream the loudest. They are the ones who move in silence, stay focused, and master themselves. And now, you are one of them. So now you know the power of focusing on yourself and staying silent. You understand how true control comes from restraint, not reaction. But here's something most people never realize. Silence alone is not enough. Because when you do speak, when you choose to break that silence, your words must have impact. The most powerful people in the world don't just talk less. They know exactly what to say when they do speak. And if you don't master this skill, all the silence in the world won't help you. So, if you're ready to take the next step, to learn how to make every word count, to command attention without raising your voice, click on this next video. Because knowing when to speak is power, but knowing how to speak, that's unstoppable. I'll see you there.